Chapter 20: Humility, Aggression, and Anger. Does blunt speaking contradict the Vaishnava principle of humility? Not according to Srila Prabhupada. Krishna is specifically addressing Arjuna as chastiser of the enemy. Whether there is no excuse, you must be a chastiser. Not that, because I have become Krishna conscious, I will be very humble. You must be humble, but if there is a need, you shall be like a thunderbolt. That Krishna is instructing. And according to the teachings of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, the theist is by no means enjoined by the scripture to be non-violent, passive spectator of the violent acts of aggressive non-atheist against Vishnu and his devotees. This is not the meaning of the teaching of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya, by which the devotee is required to be humbler than a blade of glass, than a blade of grass, and more tolerant than the tree. These qualities have to be exercised in upholding and not for deserting the cause of the truth. Such conduct on the path of the servant of the Guru appears unpleasant to the jiva in the bound stage, but there is no other alternative. Conduct that is agreeable to the body and mind of the bound jivas serves only to prolong his state of bondage. In such circumstances, there would appear to be no other method of destroying the evil mental tendencies of the bound jiva than the performance of unalloyed kirtan in the form of preaching the messages of the scriptures and of pure devotees, namely the six Goswamis, fully practicing them oneself. There is no other weapon available to the servant of the Guru for cutting the tangled knot except for the words of the scriptures and of the Guru. Accordingly, God Himself, the establisher of all religion, thus advised His beloved devotee Uddhava regarding the remedy. The devotees will dissipate the evil mental tendencies of the bound jiva by their words. The servant of the Guru has no other means except following in the footsteps of Shriman Mahaprabhu and Prabhu Nityananda under the guidance of Shri Guru. He is unable to act in accordance with the taste and nature of the bound jiva, thereby disobeying the injunctions of the Guru and of the scriptures. This constitutes his proper function of honoring others. In such conduct, there is no deficiency of the quality of humility that is greater than that of a blade of grass. This is the humble submission of the servant of the servants of the Guru. End quote. Although such an attitude might seem not at all humble, the Vaishnava understanding of humility does not entail mere quietude, cringing, and introvertedness, but a sense of total dependence on Krishna in presenting his message. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati definitely solved the apparent paradox of Vaishnava humility vis-a-vis the need to speak strongly. Quote, a chanter of Hari Kirtan is necessarily the uncompromising enemy of worldliness and hypocrisy. It is his constant function to dispel all misconceptions by preaching the truth in its most unambiguous form, without any consideration of person, place, or time. The form to be adopted to which is that which is least likely to be misunderstood. It is it is his bounden duty to clearly and frankly oppose any person who tries to deceive and harm himself and others by misrepresenting the truth, whether due to malice or genuine misunderstanding. This will be possible if the chanter of Kirtana is always prepared to submit to being trodden upon by thoughtless people. If such discomfort will enable him to benefit his persecutors by chanting of the truth in the most unambiguous manner, if he is unwilling or afraid of considerations of self respect or personal discomfort to chant Kirtana under all circumstances, he is unfit to be preacher of the absolute truth. Humility implies perfect submission to the truth and no sympathy for untruth. Those who entertain any partiality for untruth are unfit to chant Hari Kirtana. Those who entertain any partiality for untruth are unfit to chant Hari Kirtana. Any clinging to untruth is opposed to the principle of humility born of absolute submission to the truth. Those who perpetually serve the truth with all their faculties and who have no hankering for the trivialities of this world are necessarily always free from malice born of competing worldliness. Thus, they are fit to admonish those who are actively engaged in harming themselves and others by opposing or misrepresenting the truth for attaining rewards in the shape of a perpetuation of the state of misery and ignorance. The method employed by the servant of the good preceptor for preventing such misrepresentation of the truth is a part and parcel of the truth itself. It may not always be pleasing to the disease susceptibilities of the deluded mind, and may even be denounced by them as a malicious act with which they are only too familiar. But truthful words from the lips of a loyal and humble servant of Hari possess such beneficent power that all effort to suppress or obstruct those words serves merely to vindicate to impartial minds the necessity of complete submission to the absolute truth as the only cure of the disease of the worldliness. Humility employed in unambiguous service to the absolute truth is necessarily and qualitatively different from its perverted prototype practiced by cunning people for worldly gain. The professors of pseudo humility have reason to fear the preaching of Hari's servant, one of whose duty is to expose the enormous possibility of mischief inherent in the various forms of so called spiritual conduct when they are prostituted for serving the truth. End quote. Srila Prabhupada succinctly explained humility means that you are convinced beyond doubt that there is absolutely nothing in this world, not your money, not your family, not your fame, not your gun, not your education, nothing that will save you except the mercy of Krishna. When you are thus convinced, then you are humble. End quote. Srila Prabhupada also wrote, humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others, which does not preclude speaking strongly. Person raised with the fallacious belief that all opinions are equally valid might consider the combative preacher to be audacious, opinionated, and judgmental. Yet the preacher's confidence springs not from pride or dogmatism, but from the certitude that Krishna consciousness is the highest truth and must be preached by all means. Certainly, by representing the absolute truth, he is actually right, whereas all others are disastrously wrong. Quote, the devotee is always right. The non devotee is in the shape of the empirical pedant, is always and necessarily wrong. In the one case, there is always present the substantive truth and nothing but the substantive truth. In the other case, there is present the apparent or misleading hypothesis and nothing but untruth. Be intelligent and try to give them brain. And if you remain dull, brained like that, you will say, yes, yes, you are right, but you are not right. At every step, we shall say, you are not right, you are wrong, you have no brain, you are all rascals. End quote. A genuine preacher's forcefulness is quite different from that of egoistic materialist, which is born of the desire to humiliate and dominate. A book distributor once asked Srila Prabhupada how she could maintain humility while her engagement required being demandingly assertive. Be aggressive for Krishna, Srila Prabhupada told her, and later he clarified aggression for the cause of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is pure. Although unpleasant for the recipient, a Vaishnava's aggression is pure because it is actuated not by malice but by concern. Aggression seeks to force a response, whereas the polite presentation of even a strong message affords an opportunity to diplomatically ignore it. Aggressive pronouncement of the truth is considered distasteful by person opposed to truth, who, although themselves aggressive in pursuit of materialistic goals and having sentenced sadhus to tepid insignificance, deplore any aggression on the part of sadhus. Certainly, the sharp words of a sadhu are a kind of violence. They hurt. Yet, such violence is kindness, comparable to the benign cutting of a surgeon. A devotee's aggression and anger are not actuated by misanthropy, but by the opposition to commonly expounded theories that are misleading and harmful. In decrying godlessness, a devotee does not have to abandon humility. It is in his duty to speak out against illusion, blindness, and deceit, not to demean others, but to uplift them. A Vaishnava hates the sin, not the sinner. Quote, we don't hate anyone, otherwise, there will be no preaching. And Lord Jesus Christ said that you hate the disease, not the man who is suffering from disease. That is very nice. So we shall hate this influence of Maya, but not the man who is under the influence. Then how can we preach? That is our business. End quote. Therefore, aggressive pronouncement of the truth is not the hostility of an enemy, but the benevolent aggression of a true well wisher. Those who know only the self serving, artificial goodness of materialist can hardly understand that the aggressive preaching of a Vaishnava is a real act of compassion, whereas mundane compassion is misplaced and thus liable to be harmful, as in the following anecdote related by Srila Prabhupada. Quote, in front of our residence, our neighbor's daughter in law was beating her child. So I inquired through my servant, why is this young woman beating her child? The servant brought me the news that this boy gave paratha to his elder brother, who is suffering from typhoid. In typhoid fever, solid food is strictly forbidden. In typhoid fever, solid food is strictly forbidden. But the boy did not know. He asked his younger brother, if you steal one paratha and if you give me, I am very hungry. So he became very sympathetic to his brother and he gave the paratha. Now the boy was ill and the boy was ill. He aggravated the illness. So as soon as the mother heard that he gave a paratha to him, she began to beat. Why did you give? It was charity, it was affection and sympathetic, but the result was beating with shoes. End quote. I'll end it here. And Asit Prabhu, I'm giving the mic access to you for please kindly take it forward. And others also, devotees, if you want to please read, put a chat. Uh, Asit Prabhu,
Hare
please
Krishna.
take it from here.
Hare Krishna. Am I
Hare
audible?
Krishna. Yes, you are. Only by shallow.
Only by shallow judgment can the aggressive benevolence of a Vaishnava be considered unnecessarily harsh. The fact is that the world is harsh, repeated birth and death is harsh, and thus to assert this reality will always appear harsh to persons intent on avoiding reality. Actually, harshness is to not inform others of the harshness they will be forced to suffer for not accepting the direness of their predicament and not seeking to rectify it by the process of Krishna consciousness. As demonstrated in the Paratha anecdote, in fulfilling one's in fulfilling others' desires, doing what they think is good for them, one may unwittingly commit the worst violence toward them. Hence, the real duty of one who genuinely loves others is to act for their welfare even over their protests, and also to vehemently oppose persons who, even if seemingly well intentioned, try to stymie acts of true benefit. Satsvarup Das Goswami analyzed the internal mood of a steadfast preacher. There are enemies to our movement. Scholars may disregard ISKCON as sentimental. Anti-cult groups may pursue us with charges of brainwashing or coercion. There are others. A devotee sees things philosophically. He sees the enemies as agents of karma and not really as enemies in their own right. After all, they are spirit souls whose eternal nature is as servants of Krishna. This is the Mahabhagavat vision. Devotees cultivate this vision internally, but externally they have to meet the demands of preaching and act on the platform of distinguishing between friends and enemies and protecting and protecting Krishna from all attacks. Devotees are like knights at a jousting match. The scholar says, actually there is no person Krishna. Krishna has been mythologized from a conglomeration of tribal chieftains. Like Kshatriyas, we strike back. Nothing personal, professor, but actually your intelligence has been stolen by illusion. The professor might respond with an accusation of sentimentality. The devotees may call him a rascal or a dog. The argument can be heated, but the devotee maintains his internal vision that the scholar is a spirit soul in ignorance. Admirers of worldly humility, unable to detect that such meekness is often just a show of self effacement in order to avoid criticism and conflict, cannot even begin to comprehend the profound humility of a devotee who, while aggressive and bold in preaching, feels himself to be minuscule, unqualified, and totally dependent on the mercy of Guru and Krishna. His use of strong language is not the egoism of presuming himself superior. A Vaishnava considers himself most fallen and the unworthy recipient of the extraordinary mercy of Krishna and his devotees, whereby he has been allowed to engage in devotional service. Wanting to share his good fortune, he exhorts others to not be foolish as he had formerly been, but to accept the precious gift of Krishna consciousness. Thus, as Srila Prabhupada explained and exemplified, a Vaishnava is humble and meek on his own account, but for Krishna, he can be angry like fire. If you are fixed up as a servant of the Lord, even if you become angry for the Lord's service, that is not bad. Although the Bhagavad Gita 16.21 lists anger as one of the three gates to hell, properly directed, anger is godly, as demonstrated in the central theme of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is exhorting Arjuna to fight. Giriraj Swami recalls Srila Prabhupada's commenting on this. In Madras, we were seated in Srila Prabhupada's room, and His Divine Grace had just made an inspiring plea for Krishna consciousness. Then a clean cut European in his 20s exclaimed, "Yes, and then we can become more loving and less angry?" His Divine Grace replied, "What is wrong with getting angry?" The boy was startled and stammered, "Well, if we are angry, it is hard to have peace of mind." Prabhupada interrupted and said, "Anyway, that is some speculation. Even Krishna himself gets angry. We are part and parcel of Krishna, and the fact is that Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to make Arjuna angry. Arjuna was not angry when he should have been. The whole Gita was spoken just to make Arjuna angry so he would fight." The notion that a sadhu should always be calm is based on the rascal Mayavadi idea that nothing is real, therefore nothing is sacred, therefore nothing is worth getting upset about. But a Vaishnava intensely feels for Krishna and cannot tolerate belittlement of Krishna by those who ignore or directly blaspheme him. Being emotionally involved in Krishna's mission to bring his lost children back to his shelter, a Vaishnava cannot meekly disregard the demonic theories that beguile conditioned souls into remaining far from him. Therefore, it is balderdash to contend that Vaishnavas should not become angry. Rather, one who does not become angry about the pervading cheating that constitutes materialistic life, including most of what parades as religion, can only be a Vaishnava of his own imagination and never a follower of Arjuna or Hanuman or Srila Prabhupada. A real devotee has a fire of desire burning within him to establish everywhere that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. It is a preacher's glory, not a deficiency. If sometimes his devotional fire bursts forth as a volcano to annihilate all rascal theories that oppose Krishna's overlordship of everything that be. That a Vaishnava should be meek and humble does not mean that he is a wimp. A Vaishnava should be like a lamb at home and a lion in the chase, as elaborated on by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who in the following citation not only establishes the need for devotees to become angry, but also warns against merely directing anger outward without first seeing to one's own purification. We should display anger toward those who are envious of devotees. This is a particular limb of devotional service. A lack of anger against blasphemers is unjustified. But we need to understand who is actually envious of devotees. Those who do not serve the Supreme Lord, the Super Soul, and most blissful friend of all living entities, do not benefit themselves, but instead invite trouble by their envy of Krishna and the Vaishnavas. Such people are branded as envious, and we should not show them mercy. These people become intoxicated by worshipping materialists. We should both ignore them and display our anger toward them. But before that, we have to see whether we ourselves are envious of devotees, whether we ourselves are actually serving Krishna, or are we serving something else on the pretext of serving Krishna? How much are we attached to Krishna? Are we trying to enjoy the objects meant for Krishna's enjoyment? I think my enjoyment prone material body is fiercely envious of Krishna and his devotees because instead of thinking constantly of Krishna's lotus feet and happiness, I am busy worrying about my own happiness, blaspheming others, and looking for faults. I do not look at myself at all. I am such an offender at the feet of devotees that I should first learn to display anger toward myself. I am so envious of devotees that I should beat myself with shoes simply to purify myself. Then I can set an example for others and sincerely engage in the service of Hari Guru and the Vaishnavas. I must remember that everyone is worshipping Hari but me. I am unable to do so. I should also remember that I may die at any moment. So first, we should show anger toward our own sinful propensities, such as our desire for profit, adoration, and distinction, and our propensity to cheat others. We must correct ourselves first. Otherwise, we cannot correct others. Then we have to correct those who are related to us, who are envious of the spiritual master and Krishna, and who are pulling us toward material enjoyment by tempting us. This is the secret of success. Overall, although devotees may and in some circumstances should become angry, they should not be of angry temperament. Anger, when properly directed at suitable recipients and in a manner that is beneficial for them and others, becomes a further decoration to adorn the beautiful character of a Vaishnava. Chapter 21, Sentimentalism and Pseudo Saintliness. Among the main detractors of strong speaking are the overly sentimental, those who presume that bhakti should fit their vague notions of what they consider good and nice, and the pseudo saintly, who resemble the sentimental but are even less sincere. Neither class seriously tries to understand the truth as presented by Shastra and the Acharyas. Unwilling to accept the trials and to muster the resolve that are necessary for actual surrender to Krishna, they remain satisfied with a watered down version of bhakti or a mere facade of being spiritual. It is easier to attract people by sentimentalism than by stridency. The popular stereotype of a sadhu is a gentle, harmless, religious figure with a dreamy, faraway look. He holds a flower and smiles, speaks softly and sometimes giggles, and often utters words like beautiful and wonderful, or maybe speaks in riddles that no one can understand. He is seekingly nice, or maybe seekingly jovial. He has no distinct or demanding message and avoids unpleasant exchanges. A sadhu can even become an icon if he is adept at getting people to feel spiritual and their sense gratification, amid their sense gratification. But because materialists have at best a superficial understanding of what constitutes saintliness, to be lauded by them is often more of a disqualification for a sadhu than an achievement. Srila Prabhupada warned devotees against seeking cheap popularity. One may desire mundane reputation by making compromises with non devotees. These are pitfalls of personal sense gratification. Just to cheat some innocent people, one makes a show of advanced spiritual life and becomes known as a sadhu, mahatma, or religious person. All this means that the so called devotee has become victimized by all these unwanted creepers, and that the real creeper of Bhakti Lata Beach has been stunted. An imitator who is cheaply advertised as a great preacher, possessed of true saintly qualities, swaps praises with his followers and imbues them with an artificial sense of being spiritual. Enamored by them, they collect more pseudo spiritualists to be his disciples. They consider their shallow emotionalism to be superior to lower matters, such as combating atheism or distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. Devotees themselves risk veering toward impersonalism should they imitate Mayavadi cheaters who utter pious sounding platitudes about love, peace, harmony, spirituality, selfless service, and compassion without clearly defining such qualities in relation to Krishna. But Santa evasya chindanti mano vyasangam uktibhi. True sadhus are meant to speak in a manner specifically meant to cut material attachments. The principal characteristic of a genuine devotee is his full surrender to Krishna. Krishna wants his devotees to preach, and preaching means fighting. Devotees out in the hubbub of the world, fighting for Krishna, confronting all hostile elements, not caring for comfort or reputation, are surely dearer to him than ease lovers. Even for those who do go out to preach, it is less troublesome and often apparently more successful to adopt a soft line, avoiding conflict by not pricking anyone's false ego. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati noted, when one contradicts those conceptions opposed to bhakti, namely karma, jnana, and anya abhilasha, and establishes bhakti siddhanta, it becomes necessary to buck the current thoughts of the world concerned with the body and mind. As the saying goes, a dumb person has no enemies. If one simply sits in one's house silently, thinking of one's own welfare, there will certainly be nothing of import to tell the world. Those who maintain attachment to sentimental attitudes will ever remain neophytes, although they may beguile themselves and others by posing as highly advanced. They have little idea of or inclination for actual surrender to Krishna. Such supposedly saintly persons enjoy the profile of being a holy man and feel uncomfortable and threatened by undeviating preachers whose jarring words challenge their own lack of conviction and hack and expose their material attachments. Being on the mundane platform, these pseudo saints have no actual spiritual realization. However advanced and pure they may appear to their fellow sentimentalists, all their talk of love and compassion simply serves to further inflate the massive but disguised egoism that typifies both such phony sadhus as well as their equally insincere followers. Often, persons who are annoyed by incisive statements are uncommitted, and their spiritual life is at best mediocre. Among devotees, the Kanishta Adhikaris, materialistic devotees, practice bhakti in their own relaxed way, not too much, and cultivate worldly desires along with their insipid devotional activities. These Vaishnav Priya, almost devotees, can never understand that one who speaks penetratingly for the benefit of others is a greater saint than he who smiles to sanction the foolishness and hypocrisy of the bonded jivas. In response to the contention, why not just talk about Krishna? Srila Prabhupada answers, a common man cannot understand the Lord. He must first know the real position of his life under the influence of the illusory energy. In illusion, one thinks that he can be happy only by fruitive activities. But what actually happens is that one becomes more and more entangled in the network of action and reaction and does not find any solution to the problem of life. To like only the nice features of Krishna consciousness is redolent of the Prakrta Sahajyas, who pick and choose topics of bhakti according to their own taste and who consider that devotees who, unlike themselves, are not exclusively preoccupied with the sweet aspects of bhakti are on a lower level. Undoubtedly, bhakti is deliciously sweet, but to come to the level of genuine appreciation of that sweetness, all the garbage within the heart, material desires, attachments, and misconceptions must be purged. And to effect such a cleaning, the Bhagavatam prescribes that one hear the violently cathartic words of sadhus. Those who want the nectar of bhakti without the nastiness of confrontational preaching are akin to those who like to hear only sweet leelas, about whom Srila Prabhupada said, you can talk of Krishna's pastimes with the gopis. You can talk of Krishna's pastimes of killing Putana, Agasur, Bakasur. Both are same. Some of the rascals decide that to talk of Krishna's embracing the gopis is very good, and talk of Krishna killing Putna or other demons is not good. That is rascaldom. The Sahajyas simply go to the pastimes of Lord Krishna with the gopis. Other things, oh no, that is not Krishna's pastimes. They differentiate between the absolute activities of the absolute. That is called Sahajya. The Sahajyas will never read Bhagavad Gita because, sarcastically, they have been elevated to the millows of conjugal love. Therefore, they have no interest in Bhagavad Gita. Or when you discuss Srimad Bhagavatam on the philosophical point, Janmadi Yasya, they also do not attend. Just as Srimad Bhagavatam records more leelas of Krishna's killing demons than of dancing with the gopis, Srila Prabhupada more combated various materialistic, atheistic, and demoniac theories than directly describing the beauty of Krishna's form and pastimes. Devotees who are serious about fulfilling the mission of Srila Prabhupada should, as he did, challenge the whole current of worldly thought and not ape the putative sadhus, welfare workers, mundane gurus, or others who offer adjustments to or palliatives for the material condition. Such misguiders directly or indirectly perpetuate the notion that temporal existence is basically congenial to human happiness, and accordingly they offer various antidotes to its anomalies other than the only and ultimate solution, total subordination to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A sincere devotee models himself on the ideal of the authentic Vaishnava Acharyas, not on the phony piety of effete persons with an agenda to be revered as saints and well wishers of human society. One who is more attached to maintaining the profile of a sadhu than to understand and selflessly serve than to understand and selflessly serving the absolute truth is an actor, not a genuine sadhu. Devotees should not only not imitate such frauds, but should educate people that truth speaking Vaishnavas are the real friends of everyone.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. I will just ask if someone else wants to read it. Thank you. You have been very kind. Anybody else in the sangha wants to read it? Please put a small message in the chat window. Jagannath Prabhu, Vijay Krishna Prabhu, Ronald Prabhu, Shubhankar Prabhu, anyone. Krishna Keshav Prabhu, if you are listening. Okay, then go ahead, Prabhu. Do you want to continue or shall I take it over, Prabhuji?
I can continue, Prabhu. No
Go
problem.
ahead. Go ahead.
Chapter 22, Ideal Behavior, Sweet and Unsweet Speech, Artificial Politeness. Many devotees base their preaching on Srila Prabhupada's advice that we must all become ideal in our character, and then people will be very impressed with such purity. Commendably, such devotees strive to develop peacefulness, detachment, and other such attributes considered typical of saintly persons. Indeed, the public expects sadhus to behave commensurately with the divine ideals and higher knowledge they profess. As Srila Prabhupada said, a devotee is a perfect gentleman because he has developed all good qualities. And a preacher must behave very nicely. Thus, devotees who are pledged to presenting Krishna consciousness straightforwardly should know that the essence of strong speaking is strong arguments, not mere name calling. As required, a devotee may employ slurs like animals, fools, and rascals in accord with Srila Prabhupada's statement. Sometimes strong words are needed to arouse a sleeping man, but it is not enough to simply dub people as fools and rascals. Devotees should make it evident to them why they are fools and rascals and how they can stop being fools and rascals. This Krishna consciousness movement is to give the greatest benefit to the human society, to clear their rascal brain. We declare that they are all rascals. Let any scientist, philosopher come here. I shall prove that he is nothing but a rascal. I shall prove that. I challenge them. What are they doing? Nonsense. Yet Srila Prabhupada also said, a devotee is never rude to anyone. Thus, strong speaking does not necessarily entail becoming excited or irritated, nor even raising the voice. A devotee is not arrogant, brash, insulting, or nasty, nor ambitious to defeat others for the sake of self aggrandizement. Nor does he wantonly provoke quarrels. Nor should Srila Prabhupada's example of strong speaking be cited by devotee leaders so as to intimidate subordinates into submission. As a general rule, devotee preachers should eschew physical violence. Fighting is meant to defeat all errant ideas, but it is not an end in itself. Rather, it is intended to facilitate the real aim, which is to convince others of the message of Krishna consciousness. Our mission is not to fight, our mission is to convince. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada warned against unnecessary and unproductive anger. There is some gentlemanly behavior. Even if you are angry with some person, you don't show your anger. You talk with them. Actually, these people are demons. But because we are preaching, if we simply become angry and cannot convince them, that means imperfect preacher. Basically, you are angry, that's all. But because we are preachers, if I simply become angry, then my preaching work will be stopped. Just like politicians, they are angry upon the enemy, but sometimes by diplomatic means. They take their words from the enemies. Not that they show anger always. Similarly, when you go to preach, first of all, try to convince him that how have you become God? What is your uh, what is your definition of God? You simply ask, what do you mean by God? That you are claiming to be God? Regarding your tendency to become angry in public, that is all right, provided there is a positive reaction. Otherwise, we do not wish to create any unnecessary enemies. And you should curb your anger by your advanced intelligence in Krishna consciousness. We have to better correct the faulty habits of the conditioned souls by persuasive, authoritative preaching and personal example without stop. Politeness, speaking sweetly, and dealing with sensitivity and empathy for others are social skills that every gentleman should cultivate. But being good and nice is not in itself sufficient to convey Krishna consciousness or to convince others to adopt it. There are millions of good and nice people in the world who have no interest in becoming Krishna conscious. Therefore, courteousness, courteousness is not an end in itself, as demonstrated by Srila Prabhupada, who, although an ideal gentleman, sometimes upset people who expected saintly persons to be more passive. Tamal Krishna Goswami perceived that Prabhupada does not care an iota for anyone's position. He simply preaches absolutely and condemns totally all illusions, irrespective of anyone's sentiments. Undoubtedly, inconsiderate crudeness is uncouth, but conversely, being a stickler for manners can be more a fault than a virtue. Persons who develop an affection beyond the needs of civility consider that what you say is not so important as how you say it, which preempts the possibility of any meaningful discussion. Devotees can learn from the example of Vidura, a Mahabhagavat whose expertise in political and social affairs, as recorded in Vidura Niti, a series of instructions from the Mahabharata, is still revered today. Although a consummate diplomat, Vidura could occasionally be shockingly outspoken, not caring that someone might be offended by his lack of empathy and compassion. At least twice, Vidura directly told Dhritarashtra that to save the Kuru dynasty, Duryodhana should be killed. How do you sweetly tell a father your son should be killed? Gentle manliness, sweetness, and empathy are undoubtedly laudable, but the prime consideration should always be to expound the truth at all cost, no matter how bitter the truth may seem. Actually, the truth of the jiva's dependence on Krishna is delectably sweet, but for persons jaundiced by a false sense of independence from him, it can seem repulsive. Nonetheless, frank speaking is better than speaking sweetly to pacify persons who are unlikely to take serious interest in Krishna consciousness. For there cannot be an ultimately better method for preaching the truth than to directly present the truth. Nor can any other method substitute for anything short of the truth contains at least a modicum of falsity. Sweet speech may be employed for ornamenting the truth, but It should not be used to waylay the truth and thus become a decoration on a dead body. Some devotees profess that although Srila Prabhupada spoke disparagingly about politicians, questionable religionists, and so called scientists and scholars, when meeting with such persons, he would often speak in a respectful, diplomatic, encouraging them to consider respectful, diplomatic manner, encouraging them to consider adopting Krishna consciousness. In this vein, Giriraj Swami related that in Los Angeles in 1973, he asked Srila Prabhupada, when you speak about the scientists, you use words like nonsense and rascals. When we speak to them, should we use such language? And Srila Prabhupada replied, no, you should speak like a gentleman. Certainly, when drilling his disciples, Srila Prabhupada was generally more forthcoming in using unflattering terms than when he was personally addressing those very same kinds of people that he had described by such invectives. Yet there are also many examples of Srila Prabhupada being devastatingly blunt in such circumstances. He cited the precedent set by Lord Chaitanya for doing so. Chand Kazi, a Muslim magistrate, challenged Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, what is your religion? You are eating your father and mother? Directly. Not that because he was talking with a magistrate he should be a little respectful. No. In spiritual matters, everything spoken frankly. No compromise. Just like we say, if you are not a Krishna conscious person, then you are a rascal. You may be the president, that does not matter. But because you are not Krishna conscious, you are a rascal. There's no compromise. Oh, here's a big man, how he is speaking. So many scientists come. I say you are a rascal, you are a demon. I say it, and they tolerate. I prove that he is a rascal. I prove that he is a rascal, he is a demon. Then he tolerates, yes. We have got sufficient strength to prove to any we have got sufficient strength to prove to any materialistic man that he is a rascal. Following Srila Prabhupada's example, a preacher can take risks, but he is not reckless. He neither shies from controversy nor is controversial simply for the sake of being so. His aim is not just to be perceived as a gentleman, nor specifically to be outspoken or aggressive, but to serve Krishna, the absolute truth, by doing whatever is required to help jivas forgetful of Krishna, to come as soon as possible to the proper position of surrender to him. Yet a devotee knows that so-called gentlemanliness, if placed above service to the absolute truth, obliterates the very purpose of living. Hence, while behaving in a manner that upholds the exalted philosophy and culture of Krishna consciousness, and while maintaining ordinary courtesy in everyday dealings, a mature preacher does not partake in the pretentious civility of hypocrites, knowing that the artificial politeness and charm of supposedly cultured materialists is merely a charade of mutual deception, a veneer that covers selfishness, greed, and exploitation. Deceitful persons avoid speaking plainly because they want something from others, albeit perhaps only subtle advantages such as endorsement or approval, or because they care too little to act for others' real benefit. That someone deals politely with devotees does not mean that he is ready to hear from them. And it may well be that his politeness is a discreet means to avoid hearing from them. In the society of cheaters and the cheated, good manners is a social mechanism for overlooking that which should not be overlooked, thus allowing everyone to pursue sense gratification without fear of castigation. I praise you and you praise me. I say you are very big, you say I am very big, and compromise. I don't criticize you, you don't criticize me. By mutual flattery, everyone might feel good about each other, but the purpose of life is not served. A committed preacher does not cultivate such fraudulent politeness or pseudo saintliness, but rather seeks to demolish such affection. You are okay, I am okay. Our proposal is not that. Our proposal is, you are not okay, I am okay. When non-devotees say that, when say they are as good as we are, we must say that only we are good and that they are not good. This is not our obstinacy, it is an injunction of the Shastras. We must not deviate from the injunctions of the Shastras. These stark statements counter all that is considered civil and reasonable in the world. But such civility and reasonableness are derived from humanistic concepts devoid of knowledge of dharma and the purpose of life, and are practiced within a civilization that upholds all kinds of abominable activities, not least a daily holocaust of tens of millions of animals. Hence, devotees need not be overly concerned about being considered civil and reasonable by hypocrites who cannot brook any kind of preaching that impinges on their abominable status quo, for whom observance of social niceties is a controversial policy for living pleasantly in sin. It is not that gentlemanliness is to be eschewed, but a devotee must not tolerate nonsense. I am very much encouraged to learn that you are bold enough to challenge any non-devotee as you did with that impersonalist yoga student. That should be the temperament of all our preachers. We should not be aggressive, but we should not tolerate any sort of nonsense. And for that intolerance, the preacher is likely to be perceived as outspoken and aggressive. Of course, it is natural for a devotee to become animated when, for instance, he describes how certain persons posing as spiritual leaders are misleading people into hell. But however excited he may become, he should maintain internal balance and not lose self control. Nor need a devotee become disturbed by inevitable counter challenges. He may rather welcome them as a platform to dispel misconceptions and to clarify the Vaishnava position. Should we continue, Prabhu? As
We have just 1.5 page. If you wish, we can, or
sure.
hold on. Yeah, we can finish it up, Prabhu. Yeah.
Okay, sure. As Srila Prabhupada perfectly demonstrated, being a gentleman and being an uncompromising preacher are not mutually exclusive. Devotees had better look to Srila Prabhupada's example of ideal behavior than that of persons concerned with mundane conventions and unconcerned with discovering absolute reality. Srila Prabhupada was exceptionally personable. He was always strong but never nasty, and most people who met him were struck by his genuine saintliness, even if they understood little of his message. Yet Srila Prabhupada exemplified the principle that ideal behavior should give rise to bold preaching. Become first class man. Everyone will hear you, and you can face any so called first class man and talk with him straightforward that you are fourth class. Certainly, to gain credibility so that their words may be taken seriously, devotees must come to be trusted as sincere well wishers of everyone, free from the vices such as hypocrisy and that have widely diminished public confidence in religious preachers. No one can validly fault a devotee whose behavior is unimpeachable, who clearly is not personally motivated. Undeniable truths spoken by such persons resonate powerfully by the force of their veracity. Resonate powerfully for the force of their veracity is bolstered by the purity and conviction of the speaker. Hence, to be effective, those who speak cuttingly must properly practice devotional service. For instance, by rising early, ingesting only Krishna Prasada, remaining constantly and meaningfully engaged in devotional service without ulterior motive, spurning sense gratification, and being genuinely anxious for the welfare of all living beings. Our method is simple. The preacher should be ideal, sincere, serious, and strictly adhering to our principles, chanting 16 rounds and following the restrictive rules. Those who espouse righteousness but do not themselves follow the basic tenets of devotional service or even basic moral principles rightly become despised and their preaching will be ineffectual. To make a show of devotional service will not help one. One must be a pure devotee, following the devotional process. Then one can convert others to devotional service. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu practiced devotional service and preached. Apani achari bhakti karila prachar. If a preacher behaves properly in devotional service, he will be able to convince others. Otherwise, his preaching will have no effect. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for reading. We'd like to thank others also. Uh, what we are now thinking is that this is a third book which we are reading, and we want to encourage others also. So, just like yesterday, what we decided was everyone try to bring your friends to do more reading, get books, give books to others, as well as if you feel inspired, you can do a small 60 seconds video of yours of how this book reading is helping you and send it to Krishna Keshav Prabhu, Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu, or me. And then, good. Thank you so much for all for enthusiastically joining in the month of Kartik. I know everybody to wake up. Please take time and thank you. Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. We'll see you tomorrow again. And then Hare Krishna.